This is why I don't write love poems anymore. She wanted me to write her a love poem. She said no one had ever done so. We had just met. She was taking literature classes, majoring in women's studies. I still owe my old college a lot more money than my books of poetry will ever make. For the 3 semesters before, I realized I'm a college dropout. She said no one had ever written her a poem, and she begged me for just one. The plea rolled off her tongue as easily as if what she was asking me was no more difficult than to buy her a drink. And I had to remind myself that we had only just met, so there was no way she could possibly know things about me. Things like this: the number of nights I sit and stare at blank pages in my notebook, empty pieces of paper, and have to listen to them laugh at me and mock me as mercilessly as schoolyard bullies, as cruelly as my classmates in the 2nd grade when I accidentally let it slip out that my childhood dream back then was to become a surgeon or an elephant, whichever happened first. I didn't tell her about how I have to look at those blank pages and empty slates and how long I have to listen to them laugh until I can come up with another creative way to craft an airplane falling out of the sky or a freeway head-on collision into another metaphor for love. Instead, what I told her is this. I told her, my poems are not like the drink menu at your bar. My poems are stubborn. They only come out and show their faces when I'm paying attention to other things, like beauty. Like a dead bird lying on the side of the road, all covered up in mud, water, and crushed glass, and the ashes from a signal flare that the paramedics lit up the night before to warn the passing motorist that something has died here. So drive slowly, and be sure to catch a passing glimpse of death while you have a chance. Sometimes my poems scream at me, like the teenage victims of horror film villains, like a codependent mother and a God-fearingly abusive father arguing over whether or not to spare the rod. My poems are their own spoiled children. But when they're quiet, they stay as quiet as a terrified little girl hiding in an attic, praying that for one more day she can stay so silent that the black armed bandit soldiers downstairs won't find her. So I offered up all of these as my very best excuses, and she refuted every single one of them, like the obsidian beauty that she was, a honey-tongued angel sinking fishhooks in my heart, and I was left with no choice. I had to write her a poem. So I wrote her a poem. I wrote about the bird. I wrote about dead soldiers. I wrote about how all of my reasons for not writing poems to her or for her all pointed back to my own fear that I had already burned up the very best of my words on someone who wasn't her. I wrote her a poem. It was blasphemous and beautiful at the same time. I abused the comma a little too much. It had more question marks than answers for them, but I wrote her a poem. And when I was done, I read it to her. I inked the last line, and I waited with a symphony of angels and devils playing the rites of spring inside my head, and my lungs temporarily forgetting why it is that I keep them around. I waited for her to tell me if what I had offered her was enough. She said to me, "I wanted you to write me a love poem." What the hell was that?